Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Mental Health Moments with Coach Rachquel. Um, Thank you to those that will be tuning in. Hallelujah. Tonight, we're going to be talking about co parenting, the good, the bad, the ugly. And if we end up switching up, then that's what it's going to be because that means that that's what's needed. Amen. All right. So I don't believe in, belaboring the time. So we're just going to go ahead. We're going to get started. I do want to go ahead and put up here um, the number that you can text your questions to. If you just happen to have a question in the midst of the broadcast, you'll be able to uh, text your question to that number, and we'll address it, in the midst of the broadcast. If you don't want to put it in the comments, all right, all right. So the floor is yours, Coach Raquel.
Okay, give me 1 second. I'm trying to post it to my page, but I
Okay,
couldn't find it. So
no problem at
let
all.
me
Matter of fact,
go. Okay.
now that you say that, I need to do the same. And that'll give people time to come on in as well. So I can go ahead and share it
Yeah, trying to share it.
to my page. So as you come in, go ahead, please like, comment, and share. We would greatly appreciate it. Amen. What we're doing, everyone, we're just sharing it to our pages. So once you come in, go ahead, please like, comment, and share. All right. Did you get a chance to share it, Coach?
Um, yeah, I was
You
trying
need
to
to
make sure
go
it
to,
was shared.
yeah, just go to Upper Room Discipleship page if you haven't. It's
I
there,
I
and
did.
just share it from there too. You did?
I might need to just go off my page and go back on. I just want to make sure that it's shared before I click off of it
Sure.
altogether because I'm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right.
Okay. All
Let me
right.
check on my phone. Maybe the phone will do it better
Okay.
than this
Yeah.
computer here.
Yeah. I just went ahead and did it from my phone. Hey, y'all. For the ones that's already watching, thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't, please like, comment, and
Yeah, it's
share.
up there.
I only see one comment. So
Okay, so we good. I'm good. I saw that it's loaded on my page, so I wanted be able
awesome.
to post it because I got some
Okay.
followers and sure can certainly
All right.
benefit from this topic tonight, co-parenting. And I don't want to just talk about co-parenting. I
Yeah.
want to talk about parenting, period, right?
Yes.
'Cause being a parent is one of the hardest, um, but rewarding, right, jobs that we'll ever have. Raising the next generation and ensuring that they have the skills that they need to move forward. And so we're going to talk about co-parenting, but I do want to just kind of give some tools for parents in general um,
Amen.
when
That sounds
when
awesome.
discussing how to raise children. What to look for, important stages of development that our children need to be able to go through in order to be productive, um, successful citizens, right?
Yes.
So we're gonna start off with co-parenting, but I do want to kind of go through some of the stages of development and then talk about different types of parenting and
Okay.
which styles is more effective than the other
Mm,
styles and why. Okay.
I love it. Yes.
So if you have questions, make sure that you let us know. We'll try to answer questions. It doesn't have to be at the end. It can certainly be in between.
Absolutely. And I'll be watching, engage in the comment section, and interject a little bit and let you know when we have a question so we can go ahead and get it
Okay.
at you. Otherwise, if you do not want to post your question in the comments, there is a number for you to text your questions to. All right.
All
You
right.
can,
So let's get to it. What is
yeah.
co-parenting? Co-parenting is an arrangement where both parents kind of work together, and they share the responsibility of raising their children, even though they're no longer together, whether from a marriage or a romantic relationship, or just sometimes people have just acquaintances, right? And
Yeah.
things happen, and we have to learn to co-parent together. So it has to be a mutual understanding when it comes to co-parenting, right? The quality of relationship between co-parents it can have a strong influence mentally and emotionally on the well-being of our children. And if
Mhm.
we don't learn to co-parent well, our children can struggle with anxiety, they can struggle with fear, they can struggle with depression, they can struggle with trauma. And a lot of
Wow.
times we see children who are struggling with these things and not understanding that our parenting or lack thereof is causing these issues, with our children, right? Yes, there are definitely disorders that children go through, but not all things have to do with a disorder. Some things are really trauma, and it is really environmental, right? When children are not raised in loving homes or homes that are free from conflict, then
Right.
we'll begin to see them act out in other places, right? Because children are modeling what they see us do, you know. And so it's so important, when you're in a relationship and you have children, you're no longer able to be productive in that relationship. You still need to be a productive parent.
And that's what, and if I may say, I don't that's something that I've seen over the years where that's sometimes not the case because I've seen it to where when, mom and dad don't work out and dad leaves the house
Yeah,
just because you don't deal with the mom anymore, I've seen it to where it's like they divorcing or cutting off their
mhm,
own child or children. And
absolutely.
for the life of me, I don't understand that. So, you know, what is that about? Like, because
I,
I'm sure
I,
you've seen it as
I
well.
see it all the time, and I don't just see it in men. I see it in women too, who
Mm,
actually, absolutely, mothers who walk away from their children as
wow.
well. And so I counsel people who mothers have walked away, who have left them, and that leaves a hole in the hearts of our children, and they grow up feeling abandoned, they grow up feeling rejected, and they act it out in their relationships. Because listen, the relationship with your parents is influential in your life. Your father is the first man that teaches you how a man should love you,
Come on.
whether it be a boy or a girl, right? A mother is your primary nurturer. And so if you don't get that as a
Uh,
child, how can you be a complete and whole individual and
wow.
then think that you're not going to have problems in a relationship? And often what happens is children are not it's not modeled for children how to be parents. And so we
Mm,
have children thinking that we're going to be able to fill in the gaps where our parents didn't do what they needed to do. How do you, as a father, be a father when you didn't have a father and get to see that in action, right?
sheesh.
You can only try to fill in the gaps,
Wow.
right? And some
Yeah.
men are successful in their own way, even still being lacking, because when you don't get to see it modeled, then you have to fake it. You got to pretend, or you got to try to put the pieces together and fill in the gaps of that which was not taught to you. So
Wow.
that's why we see men who can walk away and not and be done, because that's what they saw their own fathers do, you know.
Now back to when you were talking about, as it relates to um a girl, female, and how her father is, the first one to teach her how to love and all that. But if she don't get that, so this is where those areas of rejection, low self-esteem, and all those other things kind of trickle
Mhm.
in, right?
Well, if the very first man in my life walks away from me, how can I expect the other men in my life to stay? And
Shoot.
so it leaves me with an emptiness of I'm not good enough for a man to stay. So I begin to seek attention, right? From any man that'll give it to me,
Mm,
because I didn't get what I needed from my father. We call them daddyless
wow.
daughters, right?
Right.
And so the importance of parents is so influential in the lives of children, whether you are together or separated. You need to show up for your children. I see a question: what happens when one has a father and a mother in the home and still have these issues? Well, you can have somebody physically in your home, but it doesn't mean that they're emotionally available, right? So we can have a father who's in the home, he provides financially, you know, he's in the home, he's present, but he's emotionally unavailable to you. So as a daughter, yeah, you have a father in the home, you get to see him be a provider, maybe, right? That's not always the case. But you get to see him be a provider, but you don't get to see him nurture, you don't get to see him interact and love you and show you emotionally what it means to have a father.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you can grow in the house, you can have a father in the house, you can have a mother in the house, but they're physically there, but they're not emotionally available, which means you'll still feel abandoned. You'll still
Wow.
feel rejected. You'll still feel unloved. You'll still feel uncared for. So parents don't just have to show up physically, they have to show up emotionally as well. They have to be
Amen.
present. They have to be
Wow.
emotionally present for their children. Yeah.
And that reminds me somewhat of like parallel parenting, because I was looking at it, and I put it up here, and it says that parallel parenting is the most common form of parenting, right? And it says that parents, they don't necessarily argue, but they don't
Mhm.
communicate and they operate in their households, independently.
Right.
So they're
Yeah.
there,
That's
but
the
there's no.
unequally yoked. That's the unequally yoked, right? It's, maybe, and that's why you have to choose your partner wisely too, even when it comes to that. Like, how are we going to raise our children when maybe you grew up with parents who were authoritative? That means authoritative is the best parenting style. That's parents who are there physically and emotionally, right? And so we're going to talk about it later, but they not only discipline their children appropriately, but they're also uh, there emotionally to show them how to do things, right? And so you can be an authoritative parent, but marry somebody who's passive. And so here you are trying to discipline and bring order and structure to your home, and they're not okay with that. So what
Mhm.
happens is children get confused.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Or
absolutely. And
or there's
there's no
one parent
united
who looks
front
like the bad guy all the time. You
all
know,
the time.
good
Yeah.
cop, bad cop. Yeah. So you have to be on the same page when it comes to parents. I tell parents all the time, you can disagree on how to parent, but you should never disagree in front of your children.
Should always be a united front.
Always be a united front. Whether you think the parent is right or wrong, that's a conversation that we should have in private. Because you
Yeah.
don't ever want to look like you're not on the same team.
Yeah.
Because children can be manipulative when they know. that the parents are not on the same team.
Absolutely. They're playing against each other if they could.
Especially as they become teenagers, right? So, and that's another way that both parents can be in the same home, but there still be issues because we're in the same home, but we're not on the same page.
Come on.
We don't agree with how to parent our children. We don't
Conflicted
agree with
co-parenting.
absolutely, and you don't have to agree to agree.
That's right.
Yeah, you don't have to agree necessarily with the way maybe your husband is disciplining the children. Now, never is abuse okay, right?
Yeah.
Never is that okay. It's never okay to abuse children. You don't have to abuse children to correct children, right? So never is that okay. But there is a area where men discipline most men discipline different than women
Mm,
because we are there for different purposes, right?
right.
Women are nurturers, right? Men are protectors and providers. And so we have to be on the same page, even when we disagree, you know, learning to communicate and be on the same page. And that's whether you're parenting as a whole family or you're co-parenting as
Yeah.
parents living in separate dwellings, separate unit. That makes sense. Yeah.
It makes perfect sense. Thank you, Shantae, for your question. Um,
So the
Go ahead.
so the quality of relationships between co-parents can also have a strong influence, like I was saying, on the emotion and the well-being of children and cause different, disorders. But the key to successful co-parenting is to separate the personal relationship with your ex from the co-parenting relationship. Let's tackle that a little bit.
All right.
Now, y'all might be angry with each other, but you still have to take the best interest of the children at heart. I don't have to necessarily like you to do what I need to do to ensure that my children are raised in a successful manner. We don't have to like each other to be cordial enough, to be adults enough, mature enough to raise children so that they are successful, you know?
Yeah.
And that takes responsible, mature individuals. And unfortunately, does not always happen.
So
It
true. They don't know how to take the emotions out of it. Like, and do what you need to do for the betterment of your
right.
child or your children.
And so it may be helpful to like start thinking of your relationship with your ex as a completely new one, right? One that is entirely about the well-being of your children and not about either one of you,
Right.
which is difficult to do, right? But you got to start seeing your ex as somebody who's still on your team because you still have children, right? But they're on my team in a different way.
I like it.
They just change roles, right? Where we were lovers or we were in a relationship. Now this person is my team member as a member of my parenting team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Move from my relationship team to now you're my on my parenting team because we still have children to parent.
I love that
Yeah.
parenting theme.
Yeah.
But the when there's so much immaturity and hurt, and a lot of times it depends on how the relationship ended, you
Hmm.
know. It's just so many moving parts and factors, you know. But even with that, we still have to get to a place where we understand that it's necessary for us to come together, work
Hmm.
cohesively for our children.
Absolutely. And we have to remember that you're not the only one being affected by the separation.
Yeah.
The children are being affected by the separation. The children are being affected by the divorce. Divorce impacts children. As much as we want to cover it up, play it, whatever we want to do, divorce impacts the mental health and the emotional well being of children. And
Yeah.
so it's already difficult for them to now be in a place where they're not seeing their parents together, and the family unit as a whole has been ripped apart or ripped open. Now we got parents who bickering and can't get along. The emotional dynamics and the emotional sometimes abuse that
Yeah.
we inflict on our children is unnecessary.
Man, you
You
saying something.
and a lot of time parents can't get out of their own selves.
Yeah.
Yes, you're struggling. We get that. We get that. You're struggling. But we're talking about little ones. We're talking about children who don't really understand the magnitude of adult relationships,
Right.
trying to maneuver the fact that now their parents are no longer together, and a lot of them blame themselves. What did I do to make daddy leave? What did I do to make mama leave? And so sometimes parents are so stuck in their own pain that they're unable to see the pain and the trauma that their children are experiencing. And
Wow.
so that's why it's so important, if this is the situation, that sometimes people just can't be together. We get that, right?
Yeah.
But you still can be mature so that the impact of divorce and separation um, doesn't impact children to the place of no return. Because some things you can't come back from.
You got that right.
Yeah.
But what about when the person you're dealing with is a narcissist? Because
That's
I've
tough
seen
all in
it
itself. That's a whole nother.
exactly. That's what, because they do things intentionally,
Yeah.
right? To nudge at you and to try to, it- it's a lot. But
That
but
that
but
in itself
trying to
is, I
co-parent with a
mean,
narcissist
well,
is
there is
something.
no co-parenting with a narcissist.
Whew.
I mean, we just have to call that what it is, right? If you're dealing with a person who's narcissistic, you will not be able to co-parent with a person who is narcissist. You just cannot do that because they don't have the mental capacity to care about anybody else but themselves. So you're not going to get anywhere with you're not going to be able to co-parent with somebody who's narcissistic. You can, however,
Yeah.
limit the engagement of the foolery,
Yeah.
and you can protect your children from the magnitude of the foolery. But that in itself is a whole nother topic. When you're talking about parenting a narcissist and being married to somebody who has narcissistic, and sometimes people are not narcissistic, they just have narcissistic characteristics or traits, right? So anybody that falls in that category, you will not be able to co-parent with them
Yeah.
because they don't have their children. They're still functioning in their id, right? There are three parts of a personality: id, ego, and superego. Id is pleasure principle, so they're still in their pleasure formality of their personality. So what can you do with a child? You're trying to co-parent with a child. That makes sense. Yeah. So you
Absolutely.
you won't be able to.
Oh,
Impossible, right?
impossible.
But you can protect yourself and your children as much as possible. Because sometimes you just have to learn to disengage from the trauma bond, right? From the
Yeah.
from the narcissistic cycle. Yeah. Shantae says
Right.
there's the importance of knowing who you're having. Absolutely. The reverse side of that is staying together for the kids when that also absolutely negatively affects children. Yeah, it is better for children to grow up in a one parent, and this is not just my opinion, studies have shown
Yeah.
that it is better for a child to grow up in one parent loving home than a two-parent home that is full of conflict,
And dysfunction.
confusion, and dysfunction. Yeah, it is. We should not stay together just for the sake of the children, because children are not dumb. Children are very wise and very observant, and
Yes.
they know when there's trouble in the camp, right? And so we want to be honest with our children. We want to be truthful with our children. And so, no, we should not stay in relationships that are conflicting and confusion and full of aggression and abuse. No, it is
Yeah.
always better to separate. Even if you don't divorce, even you have to separate and get yourselves together until you can come back and be a functional family. It is better, for children to grow up in a home where there is one loving parent, and the house is full of tranquility and peace. Yeah.
Amen. But we see it all the time though, where, some people like when we just gonna go ahead and we're gonna stay together for the kids. But I've seen so many instances where it really just make the situation worse because the child's still miserable. Like, okay,
Well,
when
and in those homes, a lot of times the parents are distant and cold with each other. So what are you showing
yeah,
the children? That a relationship is cold and distant? We're modeling for our children how to be in relationships. We're modeling for our kids how to be parents. We're modeling for our children how to be in relationships with others. And so you stay in a marriage where you're not loving and caring and you're just there. Your children see two individuals who are not loving and caring, who don't show up as a couple. So when they go into their own marriage, what do they do?
go through the
They can
motions.
they model what they see. And so they end up in relationships that are not fulfilling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Wow.
that's what I saw my parents do. I had a client, and it was a man. I had a client, and he talked about his parents being married for 30 and 40. They were married for like over 30 years. But he was afraid to be married. He had been in a home where his parents were together for over 30 years, and he was afraid of marriage because his parents were not loving towards each other. The only thing he knew about being a husband and a father is that his daddy was a provider. So the only thing he constituted being a man was, I just need to work and provide.
Wow.
And he said, I don't want to be in a relationship that's not loving.
Amen.
So what did he learn from that? They stayed together for over 30 years until the mother passed away. But what did he learn about marriage to the place where he was so afraid to be married?
That's wild.
Yeah. So we're modeling for our children how to be in relationships, or the lack thereof being in relationships. Yeah. So no, we shouldn't just stay together for the sake of staying together. What we should do is go to therapy and fix whatever's going on so that
Yes.
we can stay together and learn to be loving and caring towards each other.
Well, that T word is still taboo to a lot of people.
What therapy?
Yeah.
Why? What's wrong with therapy?
Nothing. However, like let's be real though. In our
I
culture,
know.
you know,
I know. Yeah. But we'd rather walk around in dysfunction and buy $200 hair and pay
baffling, isn't it?
baffling. We clean up the pig. We just clean up the pig, put some makeup on the pig, but it's still a pig. Yeah,
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely.
yeah. A lot of people stay together to save face, but who are we saving face for? The outside, while the inside is destroyed.
Yeah. People want to put up a front.
Yeah.
Yeah, people
But
do
who is
that.
that helping? How is that helping our children become productive citizens to the place where when they get into a relationship, they know what to do?
Hmm.
Yeah. That's what we're doing as parents. And I don't think we understand the magnitude of our responsibility as parents. It's not just to raise children, it's to raise productive husbands and wives and future parents. Yes, I know there's a lot of things that we've been through as children
Yeah,
that causes us to respond in the way that we respond, but our responsibility is to go and get healed and change so we can do better for our children, so that we can
yeah.
be the curse breakers, so we can do it different. So the next generation is not passing on the same stuff. Cycling,
So true.
cycling. Your mother got pregnant at 18 and you just cycling in, getting pregnant and getting pregnant and we
All right,
back
sis, you
on.
were frozen. You were frozen. Can you repeat that?
There, I felt like we
Are
had
you
froze
there?
for a
Can you
minute.
hear
There
me?
we go.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I can hear
You
you now.
did. Okay.
Okay, all right.
Let's talk about the cycle.
So
You were talking about the cycle.
I was just saying that eventually we have to learn to break the cycle, right? We can't keep doing the same thing that we've seen our parents do. We got to do
Yeah.
better for our children, and sometimes it means going to therapy and getting it right. That's what it means
So true.
sometimes. So um, we are our children's first experience with relationships. We're their first experience with relationships, and we are
Wow.
important to the well-being and the functionality of our children. So,
Okay. Lord have mercy. This is
can you
really
hear? I
this
feel
some
like we
really
keep
good
stopping
information.
or something.
Yeah, you were
Yeah,
kind of
did I
in and
freeze again?
out.
But you
You
got?
did.
Did you get what I was saying? Yeah.
I did. I did.
All right. So let's talk about let's go down. Let's go down to some steps to better co-parent. So the first thing is, let's set hurt and anger aside. Okay. Let's put our anger aside. It's not about us. It's not about how we feel. It's not about what he's done to me, what she's done to me. It's about our children. It's about now that we have found our place, ourselves at a place that we can no longer function together. And that's some situations. Some situations, parents won't never together in the first place. You know, even with that, you got to set aside the fact that he didn't acknowledge my child, or he didn't believe me, or whatever the anger is, right? We got to set it aside because it's not about us, it is about our children. We have got to stop being vindictive. Parents have got to stop being vindictive towards each other. And then believing that our children are going to be productive.
Listen,
They
these
see
bitter
you
baby
argue
mamas.
and fight. Like,
Listen, these bitter baby mamas and some bitter baby daddies and bitter exes. Like it'd be too much.
it'd
It'd
be
be too
way,
much.
it's too much. And then we expect our children to be okay. How okay, okay. How can you expect your child to grow up loving and caring and all they saw was you fight? How do we do that? How do we expect our children to be loving and kind when all they do is see their parents bickering and fighting towards each other?
They learn how to argue real good, but yeah,
And go to school and fight,
yeah, yeah.
go to school and be bullies, go to school and torture the children that they come in contact with because they haven't seen a healthy relationship. They don't know how to be in a healthy relationship with somebody else. So we got to set our anger aside. It's not about you. It's about the children. It's about the well-being of the children. Two, separate feelings from behavior. It's okay to be hurt and angry, but your feelings don't have to dictate your behavior. Instead, let's do what's best for the kids, working together with each other for the better sake of the children. Set it aside. Set it. You might be angry with them. You might be angry with her, but let's focus on what's most important, and let's think about the fact that these children are experiencing the divorce and the separation just like we are, and it's infecting them and impacting them just as much as is it impacting us because they can't process it. They're children. They can't process what's going on. So let's set all that stuff aside. Three, this is a big one. Please don't put your children in the middle. Your child should not know what's going on. Don't put them in the middle. And don't make them decide between their mother and their father. That is torture for children.
Yeah.
Don't put them in the middle of your mess. As much as you possibly can, keep them out of your business, out of what's going on in regards as, you know, whatever the conflict is. Don't put them in the middle. Your child shouldn't know your spouse cheated on
Right.
you. You know, there's certain things children should not know because they cannot process it.
Yeah.
And then you'll have them create a wall against the other parent that is going to be hard for the other parent to go across. Don't set booby traps for each other.
Immature people do it all the time.
I see it
It's
every
unfortunate.
single day. Every single day. Every single day. So don't put your children in the middle.
Yeah.
Keep them out of it. And remember, you're a team. You're still a team. You're a team. You just change teams. That's all. You're still a team. And teams function as we, not as I.
That's right.
What do we need for this thing to work? You know? Um, be consistent. Consistency, especially with the parent who has to leave the home. Be consistent with being present for your children because they're going to miss you, right? It's different you not being in the home. That's the situation. So being consistent with showing up for them, being consistent with still remaining present in the house. You know what I mean? Being consistent with each other as a team, as parents. Set clear boundaries. Now that's hard to do with a narcissist, right? They have no boundaries.
No wonder you couldn't hear me. So I feel like they're gonna have some level of abandonment.
Hmm.
They're gonna have some abandonment issues, especially if
Absolutely.
that parent is not being consistent in being present in their lives, or have
Yeah.
those feelings of being let down. Like if the parent is like, I'm gonna come get you, or I'm gonna come, and then they don't show up. Now they
Hmm.
don't only have issues, feeling abandoned. Now they feel rejected also. So it's like
They're gonna
being
have it
consistent.
anyway. They're gonna
Yeah,
have it
but that's
anyway.
gonna make it 10 times worse,
But it
I
takes it
would
to
think.
a whole nother level, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. When you say I'm coming and you don't show up, that bruises the heart of a child. That causes trauma to the brain of a child that may
yeah,
take years to heal. And I think we don't understand that the brain is an organ too. And the brain takes hits when we become triggered by trauma, you know, when something emotionally disturbing happens to us, when we go into crisis. When your parents separate, that's a crisis,
yeah.
right? That's a crisis. And so your brain takes a hit, right? So it's going to take time for your brain to heal just like any other organ, right? That's why I don't understand people's issue with therapy. If you have cancer, you go to the doctor. If you have high blood pressure, you go right. You go see the doctor. If you have
That's right.
suffered emotional trauma, your brain has taken some hits, has caused some. It's caused some damage, and you need to go and see a professional to help you heal.
Maybe people need to get educated on the benefits of therapy, you know,
Maybe that could be
and
our next the benefits of it
yeah, the
and
benefits of
trauma.
therapy and
Yeah,
trauma. Yes.
yeah, yeah. Because trauma is big, especially in the black community. Us being black by ourselves is traumatizing. That all in itself.
Yeah.
The the culture of being African American, we have experienced so much trauma in itself, and then we inflict each other continuously, and then we wonder why we suffer with anxiety, depression, sadness,
Yeah.
hallucinations. It's so much.
So
It runs
much.
so deep. Like it would take multiple sessions to just unchannel the demon of trauma, you know. But as parents, we can set a nurturing. We can set an environment so nurturing that trauma is at a minimum. Yeah.
Man.
Most people only see therapy as someone being in their business. And a lot of us were taught that what happens in the home stays in the home. Now we gonna tackle that. What happens in the home stays in the home. We gonna tackle. We tackling that.
I mean, I know I've heard it, and I'm sure I probably said it a time or two in life, before knowing any better. And I think that, with any of us, because listen, I've been a mama since I was 15 years old. So
Hmm.
I know there's some mistakes and some things, that I've said and done that, were not okay.
Right.
Right. I own it. I
Right.
own it. And but the whole thing is about growing and maturing and realizing, yeah, that wasn't it. You
Absolutely.
know what I'm
And
saying?
being
And
okay with your children being honest about the
yeah,
mistakes that we made. Not just you, we all. Because they don't give us a handbook on how to be parents, how to be effective parents. All we can do is do the best we can with what we have ourselves experienced and what
yeah,
we ourselves have received. And that means that we're not going to do everything right, but being okay with our children going to therapy to address the trauma that I might have caused and admitting that, baby, I did not get it right.
Yeah.
But just because I did not get it right does not mean you cannot get it right. And encouraging therapy. It's not about anybody being in your business. Therapists are held to certain levels of confidentiality where they can't even tell anybody that you go to counseling. You would never know anybody that I do therapy with unless they told you.
Right.
Being in your business, it is about you being able to find someone that you can trust to address the trauma that you have experienced. This what happens in my home stays in my home. Well, to be honest with you, what has happened in your home is already out of your home. Whether it shows up in your children's behavior
Right.
and how your children act, listen,
Come on.
it's showing up.
It's showing up.
So the concept of what's in my home stays in my home. Yeah. Some things don't have to be spoken. The fact that your child is angry, depressed, sad, anxious tells me something is happening in your home. So
Yeah.
it's better to get help and address it than it is to not address it and continue to allow it to impact your life forever.
Amen.
I have clients that are 70 years old, still tackling things that happened at 5. Like, come on. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm glad you are. But look at how much life we've lost,
Yeah.
how much peace we could have had if we had done it earlier. How much you probably did not get accomplished that God has already designed for you to accomplish just because you were going to address it. Craziness. Yeah. So setting clear boundaries, um, because we are not together anymore, there does need to be some boundaries, right? But we all need to be on the same page when it comes to boundaries, you know, setting a schedule, you know. Um, and I know some situations, court is involved and there's a custody order and all of that stuff. But you know, I always tell people why let the court do what you can do yourself, you know. And even if you do have to
Exactly.
go and get a court order, already have an agreement. Why are you going to let a judge make the decision about your children? These are your children.
That's
Have an
right.
agreement, you know? Set clear boundaries. Have a schedule. Don't engage in manipulation. Number 8, don't manipulate each other. Don't manipulate the children. Don't manipulate the situation. Be adults. Be parents. 9, be cordial and get along at events because we know that children have events and there are going to be things that we need to be at. Be culture, be mature, because it only impacts the children. 10, recognize each parent's purpose. What is the purpose of the father? What is the purpose of a mother? And I know many times I hear mothers say, "Well, I'm the mother and the father." No way, you can't be. Can't be. You cannot be a father. You just can't. There are times that you have to provide, right? But you can't be a father.
That's right.
You could be an extraordinary mother where your child is in a home and he or she does not lack because there's no father figure in the home. But you can never replace a child's father. Just
Absolutely.
like you can never replace a child's mother. You
That's
both
right.
hold different responsibilities, and different impacts in your children's life. And respecting the fact that you can never be this child's father. I could never replace your mother, but sometimes you do have to do extra. You have to be extraordinary at what you do.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. But never discount what the other person brings to the table, you know? So I'm going to talk about four parenting type styles: authoritarian, authoritative, permissive, and uninvolved. Authoritarian parents, um, they have a one-way communication. It's my way, no way. You do what I say, when I say, and how I say it. Okay? Um, these kind of parents um, experience a control that they have to have over their children, and whether we know it or not, authoritarian parents are normally less nurturing. They have less flexibility. Their style can result in their children having high levels of aggression. They can be shy, socially awkward. They can have poor self esteem. Um, and they don't function well in the community. They often rebel against authority.
Wow.
Because how many know that your children need to be able to at some point in time in their lives, right? And so, as an authoritarian parent, you're not teaching your child to be an individual. You're not teaching them how to make decisions and even how to fail, because we need failure just like we need success. And so, as
Wow.
authoritarian parent, they never really become independent of their parents. And so they begin to rebel because I've been told what to do all my life, you know? So some parents are authoritarian. It's my way or no way. I mean, many of us was raised like that, right?
Yeah, I was raised like that, and I started out being that way.
Hmm.
Yeah, I started
Rebellious.
out being that way. Um,
Yeah.
so I get that.
And then there are authoritative parents. And these parents, they have a nurturing relationships with their children. There are clear boundaries and expectations, but they also discipline their children when appropriate. All right. This parenting style is the most healthiest and provides the most healthiest outcome for our children because it teaches them to be confident, responsible, and this is the word, self-regulate. Teaches them to self-regulate because I'm not told what to do. So I got to make good decisions for myself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a balance between discipline and nurturing. When they make a mistake, okay, how do you address it? You know, are you down their backs or are you understanding, but then there is a level of consequences that they still have to deal with because of the behavior, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So authoritative parenting style makes develops the most healthiest children, and they learn to be independent. They learn how to accomplish goals, and these children have a high self-esteem. They have high self-esteem because they've been taught to be independent, to self-regulate, but they do understand that there are consequences for their actions. Okay? So then there's permissive parents. And we know what these parents are, right? They just let the
Yes.
children do whatever they want to. You know, they overdo the nurturing and they don't have any discipline. We see these children all the time. where you just give into your children, regardless of their behavior, regardless of their academics. I'm just gonna give. And a lot of times that happens because maybe children have parents have grown up in authoritarian homes where it was my way or no way. So with my children, I want to do the complete opposite, but that's not good either.
No, it's not. It's
No,
not. And I mean,
it's not.
I get it. I understand it. Um, but that 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 turns into some disastrous stuff right there, because it's kind of like, yeah, this is how I grew up. I'm not going to be anything like my parents. I'm going to make sure that my kid that and it's got to be some balance or something. Like, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's I'll leave it at that. It's a lot.
And these children, they're not able to self-regulate either. And a lot of times they pick up habits and addictions, and yeah,
Mm.
because they get to do what they want to do, you know. So they're not taught consequences. They're not
And they
taught.
tend to have an issue with authority too.
Absolutely. Because I've been allowed to do whatever I want to do, and how dare you tell me what to do?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So these children can be demanding, impulsive,
Self-centered.
selfish, self-centered. Yeah. So that's not the best way to parent either. And then we have the uninvolved parents parenting, and that's where you don't take a part in your children's parenting at all. And there are many parents who will do that. They're very uninvolved. Yeah, they're allowed to do, and it's not really allowed to do whatever you want to do, but it's just I don't care what you do. And we know these children get in trouble.
For sure.
Yeah. Many of these children are incarcerated or will be incarcerated because the last thing a child wants to do is feel unloved or uncared for, or that nobody cares about me. And when you parenting as an uninvolved parent, the child can't do anything but feel unloved or uncared for. Yeah. So the best style is authoritative, is a balance, right? I nurture you, I allow you to make mistakes, but you got to understand that there are some consequences even with the mistakes. And allowing your children room to make mistakes, because they're going to make mistakes. And even with adult children, I've went from parenting babies to adults. And it's
Yeah.
different,
It
right?
is different. And we, you know what? Sometimes we expect it to, once they become adults, you feel like, ooh, okay, I'd have raised you.
Mm-mm,
But
mm-mm.
sometimes, even having adult children, it brings on a whole other set of things
Yeah.
to deal with and that you encounter. So, mm, are you there?
Yeah, and we can't. I think the issue is, you hear me?
Yes, I do.
Can you hear me? Uh-huh.
Yes.
Sometimes we struggle with changing, right? From now understanding I'm no longer parenting a child, to now I'm a parenting adults, and that looks different.
Yeah.
It's it's allowing them to make their mistakes, but still being present when they need you to be present.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's the trusting, for those who have a spiritual concept, it's trusting God with your children, understanding that just like He loves you and cares for you, now it's His responsibility to take them where they go. You did your part, right? And so now it's His responsibility to do the rest, and still
Yeah.
being present, but having boundaries.
I had to learn
It's a
that.
it's a dance. It's a
I,
dance.
yeah, I really
Yeah.
had to learn that because as mom, you always just kind of want to, you know, be there and to have you know to share what you think da 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 da. But then it's kind of like what you have to kind of step back and
Mhm.
allow them to just go on
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
just
And
trust
in some
that
ways,
you raised them.
it's moving from a parent to a friend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Where you got to show up as a friend, you know, that gives them advice because the parenting has changed because they have other dynamics that are influencing their decisions. They have other people who are influencing their decisions. You just need to be present, but then there is a limit to what you're able to, how influential you can actually be in their lives, you know. So you got
yeah.
to change. I told one client, you know, she has a 21-year-old daughter and she still wants to parent her like she's 15. And so there's a conflict in the relationship because the 21-year-old is like, wait a minute, you know, I'm 21. I don't have to ask you if I could go and hang out, you know. And
Right.
so it, you know, we gotta. I know sometimes it's difficult as parents, but we gotta allow our children to grow up and develop their own personalities and their own way of life, you know. And listen, I just pray for my children, child. I just be like,
That's it.
Lord.
That's it. Listen, all mine are grown, right? And I
Yeah,
just I just pray for them, and that's about it. They
yeah.
come
Well,
to
and,
me
and
cool, but
yeah, and then and remembering that we made mistakes too, right? And
mm,
so that's where that grace and mercy falls in. You know,
yeah.
it's listen, I get it. You know, I get it. I still got one more. I got a 15-year-old, so pray my strength, child. All right, so we're gonna talk about stages of development, and then we're gonna be finished.
All
And
right.
I wanted to talk about stages of development because we're talking about co-parenting, and so parenting just in general. A lot of times we have to understand what stages our children are in so that we can understand their capability, especially when we're co-parenting and when we've gone through divorces and separations. And imagine children at a certain age trying to process that, right? And how that's going to play out in front of, in their lives. So the first stage, and I'm doing Erickson's 8 stages of development, but I'm only going to do 5 because the last 4 are adulthood. So the first stage is one of them is the most fundamental stage. Is trust versus mistrust. And that's from birth to 18 months old. Listen to what that is. Trust, mistrust. So people who have trust issues, something happened, right? Children who struggle to trust, something happened between birth and 18 months where a parent did not, maybe most of the time it's the mother, right? That is the nurturer that gives you a concept of she's going to be here, right? So in this stage, if a caregiver fails to provide adequate care and love, the child will come to feel that they cannot trust or depend upon the adults in their life. This is the stage where children develop trust and is based on dependability and the quality of the child care providers.
Did you say 18 years?
I said birth, 18 months, birth to 18 months.
You broke up.
Can you
You
hear me?
broke up. Birth to what?
It's 18
18
months.
months. Okay.
18 months.
Okay.
And that's trust versus mistrust. So imagine if parents break up while the child is in the age.
Wow.
That's why it's important for us to know how to co-parent. Yeah,
Mm.
ponder on that.
I am. I'm sitting here.
Right. Stage two is autonomy versus shame and doubt, and it's 18 months to 3 years. This is focused on children developing a greater sense of self, a greater sense of personal control. Um, Children who are successful in this stage, they feel secure and confident, while those who do not are left with a sense of inadequacy and self-doubt. We can't imagine that at that early age, right?
No,
That's where
no.
they regulate self-control. Yeah. So imagine if they're in a their parents are in a place where they're co-parenting or have separated or have divorced, and this is the stage where I learn self-control and adequacy, but I don't have everything I need to develop self-control and adequacy.
Sheesh.
Yeah. This is the stage I learned to be confident, but my parents can't get along. Yeah,
That's interesting.
very. And many of these children are this age, and they're watching their parents struggle to just get along to parent us.
Come on.
Yeah. Stage three is initiative versus guilt. And this is at this point in the development process, children begin to assert their power and control over the world through play and social interactions. Children who are successful at this stage feel capable and able to lead others. Those who fail to acquire these skills are left with a sense of guilt, self doubt, and lack of initiative. Leadership happens between what age? 3 and 5.
3 and 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
3 to 5.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
So when I see these little bossy kids at that age, is them exhibiting their leadership capability.
Absolutely. And they're going through the process correctly.
Wow.
But imagine if your parents can't co parent. How do you learn to be a leader? And how do you learn to lead? Right. Hmm. And then we have the fourth stage, that's industry versus inferiority. Through social interactions, children begin to develop a sense of pride in their accomplishments and their capabilities. Children need to have social skills and social functions in order to get through this stage appropriately. Children who are encouraged and commended, listen, by their parents and teachers develop a feeling of competence and belief in their skills. Those who receive little or no encouragement from their parents or teachers or peers will doubt their abilities to be successful.
Yeah, I know all about it.
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm. And what is that stage again?
That's inferiority versus industry. So industry is first, and then so they either learn pride or they become inferior to others. Sense of pride, and they need a certain amount of reassurance from their parents and from the adults in their lives so that they can have pride, self-esteem,
Right.
self-worth, you know. But if our parents can't get along, how are they going to teach us that? And then the last stage is 12 to 18. And this stage plays an essential role in the development of a sense of personal identity. Teens need to develop a sense of self and personal identity. Those who receive proper encouragement and reinforcement through personal exploration will emerge from this stage with a strong sense of self and feelings of independence and control. So identity happens between what? 12 and 18. And sometimes we see children struggle with their self identity. Hmm.
And what was the age for the industry versus inferiority?
That's, I believe, let me go back to it. I think it's 6 to,
Was it 60?
yeah, 6 to 11.
Okay.
Hmm. So that's why it's important for us to be able to parent well, because our children are learning so many qualities that they're going to have to take with them in adulthood. And if they don't learn them in the stages, a lot of them stay stuck. So that's why we can see a 12-year-old acting like a 6-year-old because they're
Wow.
not going through the stages appropriately.
And this is this deemed their formative years?
Hmm.
This is what they call it?
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's it.
absolutely.
That's interesting. But as you break this down, it just so many things make so much more sense.
Sense. Yeah. Why we see children functioning the way that they're functioning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they're not in the they're not in the proper environments that encourage and promote them going through these stages of their lives appropriately. And so they stay behind. And not just academically, mature wise, emotionally, mentally, you know,
Socially. Yeah.
socially, environmentally. And then we wonder why they can't, why they're not productive citizens, and why they can't be in relationships, and why they sleep all day. It's exhausting trying to become. It's exhausting for children to try to, you know,
Wow.
go through all these stages of development and then deal with their parents' issues.
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
exhausting. Yeah. So
Wow. This is some really good information. It really
good.
is. And I hope that those that are tuned in and those that will come and watch the replay will really take all this in, especially if they have children that fall into, this age range, you know, where, maybe there wasn't an understanding before. We can
Mhm.
kind of turn it around and make some necessary changes and adjustments. You
Right.
know,
Right.
um,
Right.
this this was some really good information.
And
Um,
imagine going through these stages and experiencing trauma, you know?
yeah,
Imagine, I mean, we're talking about trusting happens in infancy. Infancy. Well, a child has decided whether they can trust the adults in their world or they can't.
this
And
answers
we're
so many questions for
and
me.
we're playing games with our children.
Not understanding the damage.
Not under, trust happens at infancy. The way you respond to that child in infancy will let that child knows whether they can trust the world or not, whether they can trust the adults in the world or not. And so what
Yeesh.
goes on in my home stays in my home. It's gonna show.
Gong show. Wow. Wow. All right, Coach Raquel.
Yeah,
That is wow. That is a lot of information, but a lot of really good information. I appreciate it so much. And I'm sure those that, um, can relate, and those
yeah,
that, really, I just hope people really take this, process it, apply it, um, because this was really good. And I'm even going to go back and,
yeah.
you know, take a look at these stages of development. You know,
It's
this
it's
is
called
good.
Eric Erickson's stages of
Erickson.
development, and it'll give us a great understanding of not even just children. It goes all the way up into death, like how we in our 40s, we go through a
Mm,
midlife crisis. We do some self-examination of, you know, am I where I need to be in life? You know, and so
yeah.
um,
Whew.
we
All
got to do
right.
better as kids. We got to do better.
Yes,
We got to take
absolutely.
care of our children, and we got to stop expecting them to be able to do more than they can do based on the environments that they have been in.
Mm,
Let me say that again. We
say it
got to
again.
stop thinking, and we got to stop expecting our children to do better than they can do based on the environments that they have been subjected to. And I'll just
This
leave
is
it with that.
all right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for tuning
All right.
in.
It's
Um,
always been good.
yes, yes. And so, Coach Raquel, I appreciate you so much. We will be back next month.
You're
All
welcome.
right. And so, did you have any last words you wanted to say before we ended the broadcast?
Let's just do our best to parent and co parent well so that we can raise productive, confident, and successful citizens.
Amen.
Yeah, that son
That's
you're raising gonna be somebody's husband.
yes.
That daughter you're raising is gonna be somebody's wife, and they're gonna be a reflection of what you raised. And I'm
Ooh,
doing that.
oh God. Oh
Mhm.
God. Well, all right.
All right.
All right. You all be blessed. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to share the broadcast. Also, you can check it out on our YouTube channel, which is also Upper Room Discipleship Ministry. If you happens to have a prayer request, please reach out. Send prayer requests to urdministry@gmail.com. If you have topic you would like discussed on this platform, please send it to urdministry@gmail.com, or you can even text it to the number that's scrolling at the bottom. All right. Y'all have a blessed evening. Till next time.
All right.